Dude, let's go back to like the Fadogia before we even.
Okay.
Well, but
I'd love to. Yeah.
should we just sort of mention like how we even connected?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess for people that don't know me, a lot of people will probably know Lucas, and you've been in, I guess, this scene for a very long time now, delivering content, really in-depth content on supplements, on trends, on gimmicks. And I think one thing that really separates you from a lot of people is you've never been afraid of helping people understand supplement dangers. A lot of people will just, and even myself to a degree, we want to focus on what we like, what's good, what's great, what's going to give you more testosterone or whatever. And you do a lot of content on that. But you're actually not afraid to say, hey, this really messed me up and I didn't feel too good. And I just want you guys to know that this can happen. And you're not going crazy if it does. I think that's huge, man. I think you're going beyond just, you're actually trying to help people. It's very evident.
It's also the way it's framed as well is based upon the feedback that I get from people and the comments that I get. So I try not to be too biased towards my own personal experience.
Yeah.
Because I'm like trying to be the voice of people that are like screaming, desperately wanting like more information about this. Ashwagandha did this to me and it's lasted for 6 months.
Wow.
I want to be the guy that's sort of like just being vocal about it because it's like I've built the audience. It's time to like just share.
Yeah.
I've always been in the mindset of just like if you have something that could, if you have something that that you can benefit people, just share it, man.
Yeah.
I've always been about that. Whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, I just want to be like a voice, a trusted voice.
Yes.
In the space.
Well, that's huge, man. It's pretty noble. And it's funny, I've been reading this book. I try not to go on about it too much, but it's called The Diamond Cutter. And for me, it's a revelation. People like you have been doing this somewhat naturally for a while, right? And for me, on and off maybe. But this is a Buddhist book on basically business. And it explains that essentially you're planting all these seeds, right? It's karma, but it's a much more detailed explanation of karma in business. And they come back to you. And if you have the right intention, if your actual intention is to help people, it magnifies everything you're doing and I guess the results you get from it tenfold. And if you want a result, it gives you these like very almost not the typical thing you'd expect to do to help get it, solutions. So for example, if you want to get something, help someone else get it. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's almost like the gift of giving.
Yes.
Is more pleasurable and enjoyable than the act of receiving.
I remember Huberman talking about they measured that somehow, right? Like, or it was either him or someone else. It's like they measured the effect on the person receiving the good deed, but then the person that also viewed the good deed happening got some bigger hit of dopamine or whatever it was as well. It was like
actually sick.
Yeah, it was multi-layered. And so, and it's got things like, if sales are down, be more generous, which is really hard for business owners, right? It's
That's so interesting.
That's a mind fuck because you're like, oh, we got to cut on spending. And the first thing to go is maybe how many shifts your employees are getting or whatever.
I've also been thinking about that as well, like in terms of before I started charging for my advisory and advice.
Yeah.
I used to say like, because I used to just give out so much free. I'd literally just respond to DMs and just give out health information and advice.
Yep.
And some people were talking about like different lead generation funnels and things like that. And I'm like, if you want more clients, give out more free advice because you'll get more clients.
Yep.
And I think you're right, man. Like if you put out good to the world, it comes back to you not times 1, times 10, like you said.
Yeah. And the same thing went for me in terms of on the opposite side. So I realized through some of those experiences that we've touched on, and we don't have to go into too much detail here. Some people will know my story, some people won't. But some of those mistakes came back to bite me times 10 too. And that's okay. Like I'm actually glad. In the negative, you mean? In the negative. Right. Some of those things that it's like, what's actually best for people though? Because what's best for business isn't always what's best for people, right? And it's short-term gain anyway. Like, and so, now I'm much like you've always been, I'm much more conscious of if I feel like something has a dark side to it. I'm really clear about that. Even if it's, it's not about legality or not legality. We're not actually talking about that right now. That's another thing. It's
more talking about patient, client well-being, customer well-being.
100%. It's like if I'm going to give them this and it could affect their mood a bit, I just want them to know. It may not still be a reason for them not to go ahead with using something really potent. Like, I find Tongkat a very potent herb. I think it's a fantastic herb.
Did you mention the irritability?
The irritability. The irritability is a thing.
It is.
It
really is.
You've experienced it too?
Oh, man. Okay. So a lot of these test boosters, and this is not really, again, it's not really discussed a lot online, but a lot of these compounds like a Tongkat Ali, Fadogia, Agrestis, they can definitely amp you up.
Yes.
Like you get that typical like adrenergic effect.
Yes.
But they can make you very like irritable and just short-tempered and just heightened. It's almost like you need to bust a nut.
Yeah. Yeah. It's similar to, you know what? I would agree. It's similar to if you've waited too long to bust a nut. And you're getting irritable, and that, I guess, that old adage that people come up with, like, he needs to get laid, or that joke, like
it's real, man.
It can be
like
a thing.
Tongkat Ali builds that up shorter.
Yeah.
So those guys who get irritable on day 7, now they're getting irritable on day 2.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I think what I found too from client feedback and my own experimentation with that particular herb is that it's like you just have a shorter fuse. So I guess the time frame between you being irritated or sort of being a bit activated in that yang energy, we could even call it, from the borrowing from the Chinese system, is a bit shorter. Whereas normally you got like a bit more of a fuse, right? It's like, cut me off in traffic, whatever. But it's like, boom, I'm already at that zone. And then you've got to be very conscious to be like, all right, don't turn this into behaviors.
This is not me. Yeah, this is Tongkat Ali.
This is my big brother Tongkat coming through. And when you need that oomph, it's great. Like when I was really down and out at certain stages in life, even recently, it can really lift you back up. Your fuse isn't short in those scenarios. When you're really flat, it gives you back the confidence you need. You feel much better. But when you're already pretty good and you just want to tweak it up a bit, it can be quite shocking how severe it can get. But the other thing I notice is it levels out over time. It's just whether I can survive that first week when I'm working with Tongkat and in my body.
How much of that do you think is related to estrogen or cortisol, or is it a norepinephrine?
I've got a theory. I come up with a lot of theories sometimes because, the science doesn't always like have it fully figured out, right? I mean, it doesn't. That. Your whole thing is to help people find information they won't find on Google. And that's a thing. When you started saying that in your content, I was like, this motherfucker. That's exactly what I thought about too. Like, it's like there's things that you start to pick up along the way and you're like, why isn't this on Google? Why isn't anyone talking about the Tongkat rage on Google, for example? Why isn't that endohenia? Am I saying
Anhedonia?
Anhedonia, God. Endohenia.
Sometimes it can be somewhere on the internet, but it's oftentimes like on Reddit or some underground forum. Buried.
Yep.
The cave.
Yeah, buried like the cave, man. Absolutely. And buried in a way where it's like in those sort of forums, it's like, I don't know, like that. There's so much random shit there and so much misinformation in those forums. But if you were someone going through it, at least you find a correlation point and go, someone else has had this. But you're really bringing those things out to light in a way where it's a bigger conversation. And I found the same with Tongkat. But one thing when I really dived into Tongkat's research, one of the few things I pulled out from it, other than some really fascinating stuff, like it works on the gonads and on the kidneys, so the adrenal glands, which produce mostly, I guess, DHEA. So you got the Leydig cells, and so the HPTA and the HPGA, right? It's like it triggers both, and so that's why it has such notable benefits in people that are low in testosterone. But it seems to be one of the few herbs that even guys that are pretty good, younger guys that are in some of these studies, get a lift in test. Not huge, because most of these things raise test. They're not exogenous. And I think back when supplement companies marketed them in a way where young guys thought, I'm going to put on like serious muscle because of this test rise. It's like, no, bro. Like it's going to get you back up to your best, which is hugely beneficial and valid. But it is not going to give you super physiological levels of testosterone that would actually result in more muscle mass. And that's where maybe they got a bad name in the past. But one thing I found is that it seems to be an agonist, an estrogen agonist I think it's the pituitary. And the theory in that one paper I stumbled on, don't ask me where right now, I could dig it up, was that one of the ways it's acting, so first of all, there was this comparison to tamoxifen. So it's like a bit of a
SERM?
A bit of a SERM, so an estrogen receptor agonist there, right? Not an AI, but blocking that receptor so estro doesn't get there. So it's doing that. And as such, it also does that to obviously a small degree, because if it did this to a massive degree, the effects would be ridiculous. It would be problematic. It's obviously not that problem. We're talking about a bit of irritability.
Yeah.
We're not talking about like
an N-clomiphene type irritability.
Yeah.
Because that's also a SERM.
Yeah.
So maybe you're onto something there.
So what I thought is it's tickling the pituitary. It's making your brain think that your estro is really low. And when your estro is really low, you do get irritable.
For sure. Moody, irritable.
It's a shitty mood, right? And the reason why the body does this, for anyone listening, is that the way your body actually detects whether it needs to make more tests, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, you're one of the few people that absolutely can do that, but I believe is it's actually monitoring your estrogen levels. So because testosterone's end, I guess, cascade in the body, you could say to a degree, it turns into DHT, a bunch of stuff, but is in men particularly anyway, spills over into estrogen eventually at the end of its cycle. When your estrogen's high, your body goes, oh, we don't need to pump any more out of the balls because it's like he must have heaps because his estro is high. It's actually like detecting your estrogen level. And if the estrogen level's low, it's like, hey, we've got to fire these bad boys up. Like he must be having no test because nothing's converted downstream into estro. And that's why with Clomid, you'll get those ball twitches. Have you ever heard of that?
The little aches or little...
I get these... It's been a while since I've done it. And I remember a few friends confirming they felt the same, mostly because I pointed it out.
Like twitches?
Little twitches. Like they're just coming back to life. Little flickers of like, almost like electricity.
You know what? I actually got that from black ginger.
Wow.
Black ginger, and there's no research on... No, actually, there was direct research indicating that black ginger increases blood flow to the testes.
Wow.
And that actually makes sense now.
Black ginger, I'm glad you brought that up. Black ginger is one of the few herbs out there that I really think can give you a better boner, in my experience. Not if your test is non-existent, that's a different story. So as long as your test's in some relatively healthy range, then there are certain herbs and supplements that I find can improve boner rigidity, PSI, whatever.
Fadogia for me was...
Ridiculous?
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
With a capital D in ridiculous.
Yes. I still remember when my old business partner and I were experimenting with it, he talked about changing his baby's nappy the first morning after running Fadogia, like taking a dose, and he had a boner the entire time. And he said, and what was funny about that is obviously like it's such an inappropriate time to be having.
Luteinizing hormone doesn't know the environment. It just fires.
It just didn't go down. His morning wood just stayed there, he reckons. And he's a pretty young guy too. Like we were not talking about a dude that's old
was it
with low test.
legitimate Fadogia?
No, that's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But what we did back then, so we had this brand. I won't go into like too much specifics on the brand and all that because it's no longer the case that I'm affiliated at all. But we ordered several extracts of Fadogia. So there was a 20-to-1. There was a 10-to-1.
The stem?
There was stem, root, leaf.
Are you serious?
We got everything we could find.
Wow.
Because we were like, something's going on with this thing. Most of them tasted like burnt rubber. So there was a consistency to it. We didn't have any specific testing we could do in a lab or anything. So we were going on taste, look, whether two operators were sending us, two unaffiliated sources coming from China, most of this, whether it looked really different, if it came from, Jing Chen or something other labs, and that they were fairly consistent. The flavor was very consistent. The darkness of the powder would vary based on leaf was the most, I think, or was it actually? I think it was stem was the darkest, blackest, most bitter, awful one that had the most. I guess
is it the one that dropped to the bottom, or
well,
when you mixed?
Oh, when mixed in like a
in
liquid
water, yeah.
I never really remember that specific test. I think they all pretty much did from memory, but I would say if any were going to, it would be that one because that was the dankest, and it seemed to be the worst on the the digestion as well. But
the diarrhea effect that you warned me about, hit me, within the first week.
Yeah,
it was so strong, man.
And I think that again, not talked about much, but that's a throwback to what it's originally used for in, I believe, West Africa. I can't remember which part of Africa, but this is where Fadogia originally comes from. See, these guys know these herbs really well. And we don't have access to those experts because their herbal system's completely different. And I haven't stumbled, in the Chinese system, I know some experts, you know some experts, and I know even some Aussie guys that have fantastic knowledge, like Mason Taylor. But if you go to the West African herbs, it's like the Wild West in a way because there's shamans that would know their stuff and practitioners, but they're harder to access. They're not going to talk to you and me. Like it's just not, there's no Huberman of Africa yet anyway. And I'm here for it if he pops up or she. But they originally used Fadogia as an anti-malarial, as an anti-parasitic. So I got a feeling, and also we're probably harvesting the wrong part of the plant to a degree as well, right? China's probably getting it, manufacturing it in just a very arbitrary way, and there might be ways to select less GI distressing. If it's morpho libido, there's probably a different part or process that they traditionally do. Let's be real. We don't know yet, but I got a feeling. My gut tells me. But that anti-parasitic effect would make sense for how much it flushes you out.
Yeah.
Because there ain't no parasite surviving that, man. Like, it's coming out. Like, it's a cleanse. And in a way, it's quite good. It's just a little inconvenient when it starts to hit after about a week. And, if you've used it before, it seems to come on a bit faster. If it's a pretty rough stem extract for me, I can only get a day or two. And then I'm pretty much sharding again, But funnily enough, I see it in a lot of products. And I don't get that effect with all of them to the same extreme. It varies. So I don't know what their sourcing's like. It's been a while since I've done it. But there might be extracts that don't do that of Fadogia. But I haven't really found them.
But did their shamans know how to combine Fadogia with other anti-diarrheal herbs?
It could be.
Maybe there's a synergy where they combine Fadogia with... And understanding the way that they formulate, it's just profound. Just trying to understand how they combine different herbs.
Yes. Yep.
TCM just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's funny because that you mentioned TCM because Mason's one of the people that first said something like that to me, what you just said. He's like, what if we combined... I was talking to him about Tongkat one day. And he's like, what if we combined it with Reshi? And I was like, why the fuck didn't I think of that? And so I've tried that.
The anti-irritability of reishi with
the test rise of... And,
makes sense.
And it definitely does smooth it off. Like not so much that it's not there, but it makes it a lot more tolerable for me when I want to use Tongkat, when I feel I need to use it.
And they also describe reishi mushroom as a Shen. Is it Shen tonic?
That's right. Yeah. You know your stuff, man, huh? Yeah, that's right. I remember once... see if you dig this explanation because I didn't understand TCM. It's pretty complicated. But one day, I can't remember if it was Mason or someone that actually knew him quite well. Yeah, actually, it was a customer that knows him really well. His name's Navin. And he said the way that they were trained at, they did like a David Wolf seminar together or something. That's how they met. And Mason, I'm sorry if I'm butchering this and it's not correct, but for all intents and purposes, they met at this thing. And the description was, Jing in the Chinese system is the candle wax. So the analogy is a candle. The wax is how long you're going to live. So that's how long the candle's going to burn for. And so Jing tonics and herbs keep you alive longer.
Right.
So that's like
cordyceps.
Cordyceps, cystanch, euchomia. Deer antler for sure. And the description of that was because they're anything black is considered a Jing tonic as well.
Cystanch is like black.
Really dark, right?
Oh, goodness.
Deer antler, good deer antler.
Rukong. That's the TCM name.
Right. You know the native tongue as well.
I'm not wrong. for Rukong wrong.
That's your association. You've got to use those with some of these names, man. And people don't know what we go through trying to pronounce this stuff sometimes. So that's then the wick is your chi. So
the wick itself is the chi.
Yeah.
So what's the flame?
So that's the Shen.
So the flame is the Shen.
Yeah, the spirit.
Right. I would have thought the one that's burning, because it's on,
Is the chi.
Is the chi.
Yeah.
But the wick itself.
Yeah, that's your daily allocation of energy. Apparently that's what chi is
But does
more
the
about.
wick ever run out?
No, the wick doesn't run out until the wax runs out.
Right.
Then you got your last day on Earth, and that burns out as well. And the Shen is no more. The flame's gone.
So
plane.
Reishi amplifies the
Shen. Yeah.
Shen.
The spiritual. So that's the analogy they use. But
so cool.
yeah, I do.
When I used Reishi, I got you ever had moments of deja vu?
Yeah.
Where you think you're in a moment you've been there before?
Yes.
When I was taking Reishi, it amplified that.
Really?
I was making random connections with things.
Wow.
And I literally felt like my third eye was enlarging.
That's wild.
And I had to like move it as like give it a massage.
Just shut it down a bit. Like,
yeah, shut down.
It's like when you stop having fluoride and you start getting vivid dreams and you're like, I want to go back into the herd. Just put a bit of tap water back in. That's a joke. You can take it any way you want, people. I actually do try to avoid fluoride though. But we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, that's wild because I don't use reishi enough. It's one of those herbs that I know it's good. I know it's going to be good for me and getting a bit yang heavy. It's great before bed.
The other one that's amazing to balance it out is Rehmannia. You heard about Rehmannia?
I've noticed it in a lot of those blends.
When I went to TCM stores after university, I noticed that Rehmannia, it's also known as Shu Di Huang.
Right.
And I've got one of my best mates, we literally call each other Shudi.
Yeah.
Just as a joke. Like, Shudi Huang. And just like, we're weird, man.
I want a sick nickname after this.
You'll be
for us.
Let's call you
bald-headed fuck.
No, I'm going to call you the deer antler one, which is Luan Rowe.
Okay.
Luan Rowe.
I'll take Luan Rowe. Man, I love deer antler. It's very, very potent.
But yeah, going back to the Rehmannia is a really powerful kidney yin. So it's a kidney yin tonic.
Right.
So if you combine Rehmannia, it has it amplifies the effects of like cordyceps, cystanche, and the other one that they use as well is bupleurum.
Right.
Have you heard about bupleurum?
No.
Bupleurum is like the giddy herb.
Okay.
And bupleurum, again, I'm going to give a massive shout out to Stefan because he's one of my close friends. This is Shudi Huang.
Sounds like a mad dog. I like Stefan already.
I'll have to connect you guys.
Yeah.
So he noticed that he feels, because bupleurum reduces liver heat.
Okay. Yep.
So liver toxicity.
Yes. Yeah.
I think about Tutka, I think about glutathione.
Yep.
They probably all do the same thing.
Yes.
But bupleurum makes him feel giddy.
Okay.
It brings back the giddy feeling, which is like you're feeling a bit more bubbly, a bit more less intense, less serious, which is what I needed when I was at university.
I can imagine, man. I think we all need a bit of that in modern life right now.
Man, I don't know. Like, I feel like when I was younger, I was on Cordyceps for about 3-4 years straight.
Yep. Okay.
Without realizing the fact that Cordyceps was making me very, very yang and very, very like just get shit done mode.
Yep.
But to the point where it was like too much.
Okay.
Like, I needed something to reel me back.
Yep.
And that's where I sort of wish I knew about Rehmannia back then.
Yeah.
Because then it just would have anchored me a little bit more, particularly when I was going on dates.
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
I was too intense on dates.
Yeah.
If I had my time again.
Yeah. It's a thing, huh? Because you think, maybe you were thinking back then anyway, they want to see that you got your shit together, this guy's going places, he knows his stuff, but you end up like, you forget that you need to have fun in this life.
But the blood flow was going to the wrong head. You knew that was coming.
Absolutely, man. And, it's funny, talking of blood flow to the wrong head, Catuaba, brother, when you brought that out, I was like really impressed because I was like, I thought you were going to go for something like cystanche or just something a bit more generic.
We actually were, by the way.
Okay.
Exactly right. We actually did start with a testosterone booster.
Yep.
And hint, that's
could be in the pipes
soon.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
But the reason why I was so adamant on releasing Catuaba is because I just want it to, I think it deserves more attention.
Yeah.
That was the premise. Number 2 is that I've been recommending it to people for the past 5 years.
Yep.
And the response to Catuaba has always been pretty consistent.
Yep.
It's usually more talkative, more social, bit more upbeat, better mood, slightly better libido for some guys.
Yeah.
It's sort of hit and miss, depending upon if they combine it with Mucuna, which is the other aphrodisiac from Brazil.
Yes.
But I was like, no one is really modernizing Catuaba on the market. I mean, if you go on Google, Catuaba, Swanson's, bulk nutrients.
And those sacks from Happy High Herbs, right? With
So I'm like, I think we have the potential here. So then we trademarked Catua Pure.
Yep.
And who knows where that will lead, man. Like right now, it's still no one knows about it. Like
it's fringe.
No one knows about it still. Even with my audience, it's still really, and I'm hoping guys like yourself, other educators can start talking about it.
Yes.
Because it deserves attention, man.
Yeah.
Like it's a nice dopaminergic herb that doesn't have any real come down. It's not like Mucuna that just nukes your brain.
Yeah.
Which I think actually we had a chat about Mucuna before.
Oh yeah. I'm sure we probably have, because it's definitely a herb I've messed with in the past and had the dark side of it.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
And we should actually talk about this, because when it comes to dopaminergic herbs, the end goal is, let's increase dopamine, whether that's availability, binding to the receptors, slowing the degradation,
sensitivity to it.
Sensitivity. There's multiple ways of doing it. If you want a chemical straitjacket and you just I want to feel dopamine now, give me something that's dopaminergic.
Yeah.
L-Dopa.
Yeah.
Which is in Mucuna. So L-Dopa is the precursor.
That's right.
You can't. If you could take dopamine in a capsule, that would be the most direct way, but you can't.
Yeah.
I think it gets broken down in the gut or whatever.
That's right.
But Mucuna is rich in L-Dopa. So it's like, if somebody wants to actually feel dopamine, and this is really good for the virgins who have never used Mucuna before.
Yes.
Go and buy Mucuna online, get like a 15 to 20% L-Dopa extraction. Don't go for the
don't go for the
90%.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
You're going to vomit, man.
Yeah. So if you use the 15 to 20% L-Dopa, dude, I remember the first week when I started using Mucuna, I felt like it was a cheat code. Like I literally thought, I think I'm turning into a druggie.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I'm feeling so in a good mood, like heightened good mood, really high libido, just everything was great. Like I'm like, this is so good.
Yeah.
And then the come down. And the come down for me was more negativity, like I was just more negative about things in general.
Yeah.
A little bit more melancholic. You perceive the world as a bit more flat and not as exciting.
Yes.
And for me, it wasn't the trade-off that I was looking for, right?
No.
It just really wasn't worth it.
Yeah. You don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Exactly.
It's a very big trap. And I mean, you can even think about, dare I say, cocaine in that regard, if we're talking about dopamine. It is an awful thing to start chasing that in that short of a way to achieve it. It will.
Without effort.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Is that if you achieve a huge influx of, and this is Huberman.
Yeah, it is. But this is one of those home runs he really hit.
Dude, if you do a sprint session or like a really hard workout, the effort and the dynorphin, you're getting all these hormones that are being released that in the greater end of your day, where it's like the following 3 to 6 hours, you get a dopamine high.
Yep.
And that is like, well, you put in the effort, the body's going to be like, okay, this guy's put in the effort. Let's respond by favoring the effort, because the activity that he just did, weight training, is making him stronger,
yes,
more resilient. Like, so let's reinforce that.
Yep.
And dopamine is the reinforcer.
Yes.
The pleasure, when we need to talk about this, because dopamine, it can be related to pleasure, but I think the opioid system is the pleasure response.
I think you're right about that.
Like, I mean, we were talking on the way here about kratom.
Yep.
That hits the mu opioid receptor.
Yep.
And that receptor, when you touch that receptor, you feel good about yourself.
Yes.
You feel good. You it's like an internal hug.
Yes.
Right? So you can get that effect from, there's other herbs out there that can do that. But doing the full circle back to Catuaba, I liked Catuaba because when I used it for 2 weeks straight and then stopped abruptly, there was no
problemo.
come down.
Nothing.
No problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was looking for. I'm like, I knew it existed out there. I knew there was something that could raise my dopamine, bring me above baseline, give me that energy, the mood, that sort of thing, but then not crash.
Yep.
That's what I was looking for. Uridine did that to me as well.
Yep.
L-tyrate, phenylalanine does that to me as well.
I like it. Yeah.
I really like it.
Yep.
If you're feeling flat, phenylalanine under the tongue, bit of Catuaba,
yep,
you'll be back to baseline. If you're already feeling pretty good, you just want to elevate, take that stack and you feel pretty awesome.
Oh, it's an awesome stack.
How good.
Let's zoom in on that for a second because I want people to know about this. Definitely, if you can't get your hand on the phenylalanine, you can go tyrosine.
Sure.
But if you can, it's one step before tyrosine. And so it seems like when you give your body a bit more options, especially with these complex precursors and I guess neurotransmitters like dopamine, it's really clever because they are more nuanced than we probably even know yet. And so it gets to fill in the gaps in the right way. But if you don't have access to that, get some Catuaba and some tyrosine. And obviously, if you like coffee, just a reasonable amount of coffee, you will feel much better, especially if you're sleep deprived, you're just waking up groggy, you're just not feeling it. But at no point did Catuaba give me any kind of crash. It's almost like it, and from the research, which I looked into as well, which I'm going to talk about in a second, actually.
Oh, the Tupis.
The giant dick tribe, that this Brazilian tribe that I guess are most famous for Catuaba. I don't know if they're the only ones that discovered it, but they're definitely very synonymous with it. They almost worship this herb, right? That's what I read anyway.
Dude, Brazil has the lowest incidence of erectile dysfunction in the world.
No kidding. Really?
So, and their most famous aphrodisiac or their most well-known aphrodisiac is Catuaba.
See, this is the stuff that I think people need to know. And I think it's great that you've sort of taken a chance on this herb and brought it back into the light a bit because there's other countries where this is a household name.
I know.
And Brazilians, great people. They seem happy. They know how to party. They look good. This would make a lot of sense.
They're very bubbly. They're very social.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're uninhibited. A lot of the stuffiness of Sydney sometimes. I know you're from Melbourne, but
Melbourne's worse, bro.
Is it? It's getting bad here, man. It's hard to walk into a room of people you don't know and just have any connection. It's always been a bit like that.
And they actually used to call Catuaba the tree of togetherness as well. Right. You've probably seen that pop up.
I saw that.
Yeah. But also the way I look at Catuaba is it's that herb of connection.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it has an effect on oxytocin. It makes me wonder whether it does. There's no research out about it. But when you were researching Catuaba, you probably figured, it's increasing dopamine release and inhibiting the reuptake or something.
Yeah, that's right. It's a mild reuptake inhibitor.
DRI.
Yeah, and those are always anything when it comes to dopamine that does that seems to have the most pronounced effect. But it also seems to sensitize you to your own dopamine more too. So it's a tune-up. It's similar to how some of these really good test boosters work too. And some of them can be overlooked because they don't raise testosterone, but they might increase your sensitivity. Because why do we feel so good on them if they're not doing anything?
Dude, I'm so glad you mentioned that because the other day I was sort of talking to a friend and he was trying to understand why are these testosterone boosters so popular? And I'm like, well, it's not necessarily because they raise testosterone on a blood test.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about this. If a guy feels good on Tribulus, maca powder, ginseng, and he's done blood work before and after, and it hasn't actually moved the needle much, but he feels better. Is it a dopamine thing? Is it a sensitivity thing? Is it a degradation thing? Is it an androgen receptor upregulation? Whatever the story is, if the guy's feeling better, keep him on the bloody supplements.
100%.
Keep him on the stack.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Why would you stop?
We take this one measurement, and especially if some people are a little bit more pessimistic about supplements, and I get it, I do. But they take this one measurement and use that as the only way to gauge if something's having an effect. If you're having a better sex life, if you're experiencing some of those other, morning wood or whatever, then it's done something, and it's probably better for it to do some of those things than just raise serum levels of testosterone.
There you go. Would you rather on the blood test it comes back and says that you've boosted at 200 nanograms per deciliter, but you've had no improvement in symptoms? Or would you rather the symptom improvement no improvement in testosterone, I would take the symptom improvement any day of the week.
That's what we're actually trying to achieve. And I think that's something that gets lost in life, in supplementation, in a lot of these things. It's like, don't chase a number. Like it's same with the scales, right?
Become the tourist of molecules.
Become the tourist of molecules. Experience it. Don't chase the papers. They help. They give you somewhere to look. You know, someone like you're looking at what's worth my attention or what's a rabbit hole worth going down because I'm seeing something here in the paperwork. I've heard something about this. Then you maybe try it. You see if your clients are responding to it, and then you get the real world feedback on whether this is a thing to pursue or worth recommending. And people discount that anecdotal side a little bit too quickly sometimes because it can be more potent than anything else. And that's how a lot of these apothecaries came about. It's from the anecdotal. They trial and errored these herbs.
Well, TCM, I mean, is the master of anecdotal refinements, tweaking, manipulating formulas.
Yep.
Like how they formulate is just it blows my mind.
It is. It's almost hard for us to get our heads around because it comes from a different type of consciousness to a degree. Hey, you know, they're talking about dampness, dryness. It's just different conceptualization of the whole process of figuring out what a body needs. So,
I tried making the link between like if they call Rehmannia a kidney yin tonic, I was like, what is it doing to cortisol? And it turns out that one of the constituents, Catalpol, which is, by the way, if anyone's listening to this and they want to geek out, it's Catalpol, Catalpol. Man, on PubMed, if you search that, there's hundreds of studies on this constituent in Rehmannia.
Wow.
It's wild. It's sort of like forskolin.
Oh, yeah.
You ever search forskolin on PubMed?
Yeah.
It's wild. There's over 1,000 references on just forskolin.
Holy shit.
Now, not because it's like it's not because it's doing it's not achieving a certain thing. They're using it as the like the active control in studies because it increases cyclic AMP.
Right.
And there's so many weird studies that go on looking at cyclic AMP, like lung condition. It's because it's a secondary messenger, so it's going to pop up everywhere.
Yep.
But looking at Rehmannia, the Catalpol, neurogenesis enhancement.
Really?
Seriously, like it it's all coming back to me now. I feel like I'm getting all the downloads. No-go A inhibitor.
Right.
It's a no-go A inhibitor. And if you look up no-go A inhibition, it's like a neurogenesis. It activates neuron outgrowth. It's sort of like I'm not going to make the analogy like psilocybin, but if we looked into what psilocybin does to that no-go A receptor, I would hedge my bets. Not that the research is there, but if somebody said, Lucas, do you reckon it hits that receptor? I'll be like, I reckon it does.
Yeah, yeah. And I like those kind of hunches because that's where you actually open up some potential innovation in this sort of world. And, you know, we can't, the thing people don't realize is studies are expensive and they're agenda-based often. And so you can't just always study everything that...
Agenda and gender.
Yeah.
Like, because they're predominantly men as well. So sorry women out there.
True.
They do miss out a lot.
That is so true. I mean, and, you know, raising tests in women is just as beneficial as it is in men.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw some content about this from, there's one content creator, I forget her name. She's pretty jacked.
Louisa Nicola?
I think that might be her, right?
Is she like sort of like a Rhonda Patrick style?
She's like Rhonda Patrick, but like muscle.
Oh.
She talks about how muscle is like so important.
Dr. Gabrielle Lyon.
That's her. And she's
protein one.
Yeah. She's one of the few that talks about testosterone for women and how important and how it can fix libido. It can help with a whole range of things. Not necessarily TRT. I mean, maybe that. No. But even herbs like some of the ones we've touched on can be just as beneficial in women. And on that subject, Tribulus in women makes their libido goes up a lot.
Do you reckon that's because of the Myo inhibition?
It could be that. It could be the sensitization to their own existing test level, but it could be the follicle stimulating hormone pathway too. Because, I mean, for me, the analogy, this is a terrible analogy, but for women, the gonads are the ovaries, basically, like roughly. And then they have, obviously, we both have the kidneys as a production.
And that's why, unfortunately, they can't ice their... Because you know how everyone, I get a lot of guys asking me like, a lot of guys benefit from icing the testes.
Yeah.
And they ask me, can they ice their ovaries?
And
for better fertility.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Don't have the answer to that.
That would be hard to do.
Well, would the ovaries environment require warmth or cool? For men, they require cool.
Yeah.
But for I would think the opposite.
Yeah, I would think
Like
the body
warm
wouldn't.
environment.
Yeah,
the
body wouldn't be designed the way it is if that was meant to be the case, right? Exactly.
Yeah, no guy wants a cold woman as well.
Nah, man. I mean, yeah, there's probably some freaks out there though, but that's a different podcast. Yeah, I agree that I think I think it needs to be talked about more. But it's funny how a lot of these herbs and a lot of the supplements too, actually, they behave in a way where the body gets to do what it wants to with it, or it tunes up the body in a way where it's much more nuanced than exogenous. It's like when you start putting exogenous compounds that are fully formed into the body, that's so unusual in nature. It's not unusual to consume herbs in nature and food and technically.
When you say fully formed, do you mean the hormone itself?
The hormone itself, fully,
like HRT.
Yeah, in its molecule format. There's nowhere in nature where you'd accidentally run into a tree and scrape your leg and just get a hit of
estradiol,
3 cc's of testosterone. It's like, so the body goes like, whoa, what's going on here? And of course, it's different if it's been depleted and you're actually compromised in some way, and it's just giving you backward. And that's the beauty of science. But I think that's why a lot of these herbs, if you take them and put them in a man's diet or a woman's diet, they will produce really cool results, but it doesn't clash as much as a woman might think. It's like, isn't that a test booster? Isn't that some man herb?
That also applies with like Shatavari. Shatavari is like the women's Tongkat Ali. So Shatavari, the saying is, it's asparagus racemosis. Okay. And Shatavari is, there's a quote that says, for a woman with 1,000 husbands.
Wow.
And Shatavari is like, yes, it's considered like the premier female tonic.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, man, like asparagus racemosis, give it to a guy, it increases fertility in men. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily like an estrogenic herb in men, so therefore men can't use it.
Yeah.
Like there's dual roles for these herbs just because they're, marketed for women.
Yeah.
Another example is Myo Inositol.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, PCOS on the label for every bottle. I literally like take 6 scoops of Myo Inositol every day.
Yeah.
Right? I'm taking like every meal, I'm having inositol with every meal.
For the insulin sensitivity.
Sensitivity. And I've seen blood work. I've looked at blood work before and after. And I've seen like it happen in gestational diabetes. It's sort of, preventing that.
Yep.
We're not giving medical advice, but in terms of the Myo Inositol, it's marketed, for PCOS because it inhibits insulin production in women and therefore, helps balance insulin.
Yep.
And therefore, because we're lowering insulin, we're also lowering androgens in women.
Yep. Okay.
But that doesn't happen in men. Guess what happens? If you lower insulin in men, you're lowering aromatase because insulin actually upregulates aromatase.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm going to take heaps of inositol, knowing that I'm getting the insulin sensitization effect, and it also matters which form because the D-chiro-inositol, I don't know if you saw my video, the D-chiro-inositol, man, it slashes estradiol. And there's a human clinical study showing this, that it can drop estradiol so powerfully, almost to the point where it's like, you're literally almost using an AI.
That's wicked. And that's a lot of men, that could be their problem. So whether they've gotten obese from too much, junk food, carbs, whatever, insulin sensitivity is blunting, or they've been messing around with exogenous stuff, because that can leave you kind of out of whack for a long time. And it can leave your insulin sensitivity pretty stuffed up too, especially if it's some of those sort of wacky research level ones, like pro hormones and stuff. I find a lot of those guys that are struggling after messing with that, it's estradiol that just takes forever to get back under control. So that could be a great supplement for them to consider because everyone reaches for the same old things in those niches, right? It's like, I need aromazine, I need Clomid.
But they only do what they know, right? Like they just don't know what's out there. That's the thing.
They would never think that something you can get from Switch Nutrition just easily in any supplement store would help.
They wouldn't know. The
thing is like, it's not hard enough.
Not hard enough. That's the exact language that they use. Like, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
If I don't, like if you do all right, let's like put together like a hypothetical estrogen lowering stack that's not pharmaceutical grade.
Yep.
You've got like calcium D-glucarate.
Thank you for saying that. That slaps. 500 milligrams.
So
Get
good.
it up there. Yeah.
So good. I remember the first week that I used it, I'm like, I've been living my life with like very high estrogen.
Yeah.
And I actually did because I was sitting at around like 62 for estradiol.
Yep.
And I'm actually going to blame Cordyceps for that because there's actually a male rat study showing that it increased testosterone, but also estradiol.
Okay.
So I'm like, I used that for 3 years. Was that the reason why my estradiol was also high whilst my testosterone was high?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing, but if we look at like a hypothetical estrogen lowering stack, D-Inositol, I would put that in there because that lowers estradiol.
Yep.
Calcium D-glucarate, I would consider maybe a little bit of zinc.
Yep.
Not high dose, but a little bit of zinc.
Yep.
I would also consider maybe a little bit of nettle root. Maybe. Like, yeah, it does block DHT a little bit, but.
No, I found it weirdly when I used nettle root. I remember one time when I used it. I'm always chasing these moments where I think I discover something, and because not every setting will you repeat that same effect.
I agree.
Right? And so sometimes you got to make notes on this just to remember, like, okay. And I remember I did a cycle of some crap. And I don't mind admitting, like, this is.
Are we talking SARMs?
No, it was a pro hormone by Blackstone Labs. Right?
Is this like one of the one epi
Yeah, it was like.
No.
It was like those DHEA derivatives that there was like a dry one, chosen one. There was like a nandrolone one. And like, you know, I don't do that anymore. I chase any kind of natural muscle builder now all day. You know, creatine.
Dilocine.
The Pepti Strong. I mean, you name it. I'm very interested. Some of the stuff Kyle's done with
Creatine.
Level Up. Yeah. Oh, creatine. I've definitely been using that too. And so on. And certainly mess with ecti a little bit, which can get a little estrogenic.
Ecti or epi?
Epicatechin all day because I consider that anti-aging.
I need to be on that more. I actually want to do a cycle of epicatechin.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing that as time goes on, we'll realize you can just run all the time. It's one of the few.
Non-suppressive,
lowers myostatin, increases follistatin, stave off sarcopenia. The only downside I've ever experienced with it is that some people are a little sensitive to epicatechins in the stomach. Make them feel a little bit off. So if you have really strong matcha or green tea and you don't feel too great, my wife gets this. She can't take epicatechin. It's just weird.
Really?
She feels nauseous.
But what you said before about chasing.
So nettle root. Yes. And this podcast was always going to be like this. Nettle root I took after one of those cycles of some bullshit where I just didn't feel myself. Libido wasn't back.
When you came off?
When I came off and had been off for a while and just wasn't
still
back.
Off.
It was taking a long time and I was just like, this sucks. I started having nettle root in my stack because I just thought, it was in some suggestions on PCT and different things and more so for during when you're on something to keep your DHT in check. RIP my hair, which was always going to go anyway. So it didn't help me at all in that regard. And so basically when I took it, I noticed a sudden return. So whatever was out of whack at the time, it corrected it. I don't know what that was. I didn't do any blood work back then. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I knew that when the nettle came into that mix and it was in a low libido state after having something that would have been exogenous, mimicking testosterone in some way, it seemed to free bound test is what I landed on later. Much like boron can, fenugreek's showing some evidence for. There's a few others that might help with that. Tongkat, obviously. But I feel like it freed up something that was bound because it was too quick. It was like a few days of using it and I was like, I'm back, babe. I'm feeling good again.
You know what you're raising there is the importance of getting guys to like be hyper experimental.
Yeah.
Because they need to do, I feel like they need like a 2-week dating period with these herbs.
Yeah.
They need to understand them and they need to understand them also in isolation.
Yes.
Because what you said before really hit a chord, which was supplements can hit differently depending upon the context in which they're introduced.
Yes.
And when you said that, it hit a mark because I'm like, I'll come back and revisit a herb or supplement with the current stack that I'm currently on. And therefore I can get it might hit differently.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it has.
Yes.
Like for example, Fadogia Phenylalanine,
Oh, yeah.
you know, when I've introduced that with some other things in the mix, for example, St. John's wort,
Yep.
the combination just didn't do it for me.
Right.
But phenylalanine by itself, it felt great. Like
Yes.
I could always get a good response. So
Yep.
the main drive away for people listening is anytime you're experimenting with a new supplement, please keep a log.
Yes.
Keep a freaking log on
Yep.
your phone
Yep.
so that you can see exactly if I bring in Tongkat Ali and then I bring in rhodiola,
Yep.
like what's the net outcome?
Yep.
If I bring in Tongkat Ali and I'm on a carnivore diet, what's the net outcome?
Yes.
You know, if I bring in Tongkat Ali and I'm taking magnesium at nighttime, what's the outcome?
Yep.
It's ultimately going to depend upon the context in which it's introduced, because the way I like to view the body is like Play-Doh. You know,
Yep.
Play-Doh?
Yeah.
How you can just mold it.
Yep.
You can shift it and shape it the way you want.
Yes.
You can do that now because we're biohacking, right?
100%.
We have the opportunity now where we're seeing research about how they're working.
Yep.
We can push this one direction. You've got ChatGPT to help us understand things. Like,
Yes.
it's unreal.
And you know, it's not actually new to humans. You know, it's a lot of this stuff's new to Westerners like us. We're going to put ourselves in that category a little bit, and we're obviously doing our best to fight our way out of that ignorance. But a lot of these ancient cultures know this stuff. You know, the Tupi tribe in Brazil with the elephant dicks. By the way, this is a thing. Look it up. These guys swear by Catuaba. They actually believe, obviously they've got some mysticism around it, which, you know, you don't have to subscribe to if you don't want to. But I want to. That the herb it's part of their culture. They worship this herb and it blessed them with these large penises. Now, whether that had something to do with evolution of DNA or not, I don't know. I haven't looked at the actual schlongs myself. But the point is, they know some stuff. They know they've been biohacking.
You just get slapped in the face with new research. Slapped in the
it's
face.
a real slap in the face
When you dig deeper.
when you realize that these guys have been doing it for centuries, you know. And so biohacking, we've got more at our disposal now, but there's things that are at our disposal that we're rediscovering. They're not even new tech. You know, we've got these cool oral peptides like Kyle's doing with the Level Up Health, and they're not new. I saw your videos on them 5 years ago, but they're becoming more available. And yeah, that's really cutting edge. And you won't find that in the Tupi, you know, in the elephant dick circle. But what you will find is each of these cultures, South American cultures,
Indigenous,
yes,
Australian. I think there's books about how
They
they're
got some
always
stuff.
on the hunt for new nicotine sort of stuff,
Yeah.
or like just man has always been on the quest to discover new like ways of bettering mankind.
absolutely.
That is what you're trying to basically explain. That
Yes.
like it's not new. Biohacking's not new.
Yeah, no.
We've always been on the quest to hunt down this novel compound that we can, you know, improve the human condition.
Yes.
Right? It's like, is it going to make us hunt for longer?
Yes.
Is it going to make us better with night vision? Because there's some
Yeah.
there are herbs out there that can help with like
Yes.
seeing at nighttime.
There's teas they take in the jungle to hunt at night, to be more alert and improve their vision. And it improves their ability to, like, there's certain prey at night that you can, you know, with the blowgun get.
Is it the
Yeah. And this tea I've actually taken before because Happy High Herbs had it. And it said it was great to have at night. And I didn't
before hunting?
Yeah, before hunting. I'm an idiot. So I took this tea. I didn't sleep all night. I was in this half dreaming state all night because it's like being stimulated slightly and hyper aware.
Maybe you should have hunted at Woolworths.
I should have been doing something useful as opposed to trying to go to sleep. I thought it was like a sleeping tea, but no, this was, when I looked into it a bit deeper, it's like
What
a
were the
hunting tea.
ingredients in that?
It's literally just a herb, one herb.
A single herb.
Yeah, it starts with a G. It's not guarana.
Not guayusa.
Yeah, it could be guayusa. It sounds like it. It was in like this silver bag with a green label on it, and it's an epic tea to take during the day, but these guys use it for night hunting, and it is not a sleep formula like I had misinterpreted it to be. Because I try all kinds. I mean, I've always been an idiot with just how ridiculously experimental I'd like to be.
Let's go there. Let's go there. In terms of experimenting, like, I mean, just the other night, and I'm just going to put this out there. My best friend, for the first time ever, he's always been anti-drugs.
Yep.
Right, but he's recently got his hands on some cannabis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, which you can legally obtain now in Australia.
Yeah, and he's legally got it, And we always said, like, bro, never take, we were always under the impression that none of us would ever go down that route. And he made a comment to the group. He's like, bro, this is nothing. Like Lucas back in the day, he's tried so many fringe things and dangerous things. And I'm like, have I though? Because when I'm going into these sort of experiments, is like, it's one thing to read studies, and it's another thing to actually physically experiment and get the visceral feeling.
Yes.
And like I have probably the riskiest thing that I've ever tried is 9-MeBC, 9-methyl-beta-carboline.
Okay.
You heard about that one?
I have heard of carbolines. Tell me about this one.
9-MeBC was initially they were looking at these beta-carbolines. They're basically alkaloids that can help to regenerate dopaminergic neurons.
Okay.
So similar to like ibogaine, similar to like uridine.
Yeah.
And 9-MeBC, there's many different types of these like beta-carbolines. All of the other ones are neurotoxic.
Right.
But this one is actually neuroprotective.
Okay.
So you better make sure you get in the right one.
Yeah.
Because 9-MeBC is like, I called it the ayahuasca-inspired nootropic. Right. Because it's actually found in the beta-carpi. Is it the beta-carpi plant that they use to make up the brew?
Yeah, they call it the vine is called beta-carpi or something. It's like
that's the shortened version for it.
Yeah, and the leaves are usually chacruna. Yeah, but there's multiple different leaves they can
different
use,
types.
Actually. Yeah,
yeah. But if you look into the alkaloids that are in ayahuasca, there's a lot of these beta-carbolines.
Yeah,
and so 9-MeBC was. If you look up 9-MeBC on PubMed, you'll see the 3 R's. First one is regeneration. Right. Second one is restoration. So regeneration, restoration, and repair. Okay. So it does the 3 R's for the dopamine system. Regeneration, restoration, and repair.
That has huge implications for people that maybe abuse things like cocaine, right? Because that could really fuck you up in that regard. Okay, huge.
So then, I was someone who was interested in just seeing what it was like. So from like a physical experimentation purpose. Yep. Bear in mind the dosage for beta-carbolines, we're talking like less than 50 milligrams. Yeah. So you have to know sort of what dosages it's a smaller scale now. Now we're talking about alkaloids. It's like, okay, you got to be careful.
There's a few ingredients like that, right? Like even huperzine A or yohimbine, they're dangerous.
Huperzine.
Oh my God. Huperzine.
Did you ever?
I've overdosed on huperzine.
I was waiting for it.
I was down and out for the whole day.
I was waiting for it,
it's
man.
rough.
It sounds worse. Luckily, I've never done it, but it sounds worse than nicotine overdose.
Yeah, it's like
nicotine, the gum, where people get ruined.
Yeah, it is very similar to that because I've gone too hard on shisha and cigars even and felt similar, but it wears off quicker. But it was sort of like having a migraine all day kind of vibes. You're just really head swimmy. You can't get your shit together. You feel nauseous.
Well, the problem with huperzine can catch people off guard because it's micrograms, not milligrams.
Yeah, that's right.
Like let's put a capital C on that.
You want to be at the 1% if you're talking milligrams, and you want to be very low on those milligrams. You want to be like 10 milligrams of the 1% to get 100 micrograms, which is a decent dose. You can go up to 400 micrograms at the most. Bro, it was awful. But back to this experimental compound.
So 9-MeBC, caught my attention because I'm like, all right, I've responded really well to uridine.
Okay, cool.
And I'm like, uridine, Mr. Happy Stack with the omega-3s and the B complex. I'm like,
classic.
That moved the needle for me.
Yeah.
It moved the needle in the direction that I wanted really profoundly, and it changed my personality like ongoingly. Wow. Like I'm talking even after stopping.
For the better?
For the better. Yeah.
So around that time where you felt you were too serious, do you feel like it helped with that? Or is it more like you became more positive in some way?
So the number one thing that helped me reverse was the comfort of procrastination.
Oh, whoa. What the fuck? I did not expect you to say something that profound.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was really, and it also.
That's cool.
It unlocked this state of mind where
things can be done.
Things get done, but once they're done, you don't get that, they're done. Like now I can chill.
Now I'm going to take a week off getting shit done. It's like,
I want more.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Yeah.
I'm hunting things to do now.
That's mad.
And I even gave this to a few friends of mine, a few girls. They got the same effect.
Brilliant.
And they're just, they're able to get their work done. Assignments that used to, that dread before an assignment.
I see it on all my employees' faces, man. We employ a lot of uni students at my current day job, and I see them all struggle with this. And that's
Just
why
give them
addressing
some
this,
Uridine, man.
yeah, honestly, and look, and it's funny you mentioned Uridine because that's actually a supplement that I've got to be careful with how much I have because 50 milligrams seems to be my max dose.
Yeah.
Before I get this really head swimmy, it always goes the other way. Sleepy, off balance feeling. I feel actually off balance. So and a lot of supplements want to hit you with that 250 milligrams, and you don't have the dosing flexibility unless you open up the cap. So I'd love to see more low dose Uridine because it's very effective at low doses for me. But other people love the 250 milligrams.
So this is the other point around formulating is I have a thing for like, obviously I've released Catuaba and I've got 400 milligrams per capsule.
Yeah.
Three capsules per serving, 1200 milligrams is a serving.
Yeah. Which I found to be a good dose for me. But I did play with the options you gave.
You can push it up, you can drop it down.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to formulating, one of my sort of pet hates is being critiqued for underdosing.
Yes.
Come on, man. Like if Uridine is not studied at, good example, Uridine is studied at about 300 milligrams, I think, and it goes up to like 1.2 grams.
Yeah.
It hasn't been studied at 50 milligrams, but that's the dosage that we've decided to put in there because we found that 50 milligrams of Uridine gives us the stimulation.
Yeah.
And then you get people that look at the formula and they're like, this guy's underdosing, he's undercutting, he's being lazy with his formula, he's trying to cut corners.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Thank you for addressing that. I almost want this to be a clip we pull out right now because we need to stop this arms race of dosages in supplements. This concept that more is better. I've seen it time and time again. It's like, you want to bring out a pre-workout with 250 milligrams? I'm going to bring out one with 300 milligrams. You want to bring out a supplement with, 20 milligrams of 1% Huperzine A? I'm going to bring out 100 milligrams and overdose people at some point. And it was the same with the exogenous, compounds, the SARMs back in the day. It started off with 3 milligrams for ligandrol. They ended up at 20.
Did it start at 3?
It started at 3.
Or 5? 3 to 5?
3 to 5 in the Olympus Labs.
Jeez,
brand.
I wish they continued
They
that.
should have kept it very low. In studies, it worked at very low doses.
To secretly drop the SHBG, because this is a quick protocol on that, is some people, they've asked me for opinions. This is not medical advice, but
And I'm sure they do. They ask you all the time.
if you want to lower SHBG without causing much collateral damage, you can do that with low dose ostarine.
Yeah.
And we're talking 3 to 5 milligrams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can drop your SHBG, take all your other test boosters, and now all of a sudden you've got a huge amount of free test.
Wow. And I can guarantee you I really want to try that now. But it's so true because a lot of these effects work better at just the sweet spot, not the mega dose. And you can always add more. You can't take less out of the supplement easily.
So you believe minimum effective dosage?
I'm big on minimum effective, especially for receptor density. Like a lot of people, if you got enough muscle mass, if we're talking muscle builders, you might be able to handle bigger doses. But if you don't, it's really detrimental. You flood the receptors, you get the knock-on effects, the downstream effects that are undesirable, like excess conversion to things like estradiol, estrogen. It's a miss. And it's the same with nootropics, right? You and I both know there's a sweet spot for everything. Caffeine on a given day. The amount of tyrosine, you can flood that too. I've tried the Charles Parlequin 20 grams.
Of
tyrosine.
Tyrosine.
Yeah, he's got this
20 grams.
Test. Yeah, he's got this 20-gram test where you use it to try to find out if you're more dopamine.
Charles Poliquin did this?
Yeah, he suggests it as it's just a one-time mega dose that he'd give athletes to find out what type of neurotransmitter they're dominant in.
Interesting.
For some reason. I mean, the guy's a bit of a legend. So he was up to something with it. And I've even tried that. I've tried the 20 grams of creatine in one hit. You need a good quality one. And all these things, there's a sweet spot. Those mega dose, if it was always more, then we'd all just be doing that, wouldn't we? But it doesn't work like that. The body doesn't work like that. And I just want everyone to be aware of that. If this is the one little clip we get to some people, it's like when these supplements are formulated, particularly if you're coming to Lucas's brand as it evolves over time, know that care and precision is being put into the dosages, and it doesn't always mean more is better. You have to understand that. You want effect. You don't necessarily want an impressive label.
That's the whole point. Yeah, you're right. Because the whole point around it is like, am I here to formulate supplements to please the what do you call it? Like the formulation committee board.
Yeah.
Or am I here to formulate supplements that actually deliver the claims that it makes?
Yeah.
And am I trying to, like, what is the reason why I've selected that dosage?
Yeah.
Like, I'm always asking myself that question. Why have I gone for a 2% uricomanone and not a 10% uricomanone?
I'm so glad you went lower.
Because uricomanone, and I've looked into it, uricomanone, which is the active constituent, one of the active constituents in Tongkat Ali,
yes, it is,
can inhibit aromatase, and it can do that pretty powerfully.
Yeah.
I've acquired, somehow, don't ask how I got it, but I actually acquired uricomanone. I think it was pure.
Wow.
And it was basically.
Is it white?
It was light. It was white to light brown.
Yeah, that's when you start knowing things are isolated because there's less and less plant material. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so that really knocked my socks off. It took a good 2-3 weeks to bounce back from that experiment.
Yep.
And that experiment was just me being Lucas, trying to explore how does Lucas show up in the world with a low estrogen in a low estrogen state?
Yeah.
How does he show up in the world?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I noticed that, my joints were starting to click and pop. I just felt shit.
Awful.
No morning wood.
It's gone. Hey, yeah.
There's no libido, no excitement.
Yep.
I feel anhedonic. I don't feel great.
Yeah.
And it's just a clear-cut example of like, good job, man. Like you pushed your biology in the direction it's not supposed to go.
Yeah. More is not always more.
More is not always more.
Yeah.
There's a reason why so you feel good when your SHBG is here, and your testosterone is, for me personally, I'm a guy who feels the best in terms of like overall feeling great when test is high, DHT is high. We haven't even touched on DHT.
We got to talk about DHT inhibitors before this is the one thing we do before we wrap.
We definitely need to.
Yeah.
When DHT is high and estradiol is not super high, but it's high.
Yeah.
It's moderate to high.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting on 900 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter testosterone.
You need to balance that.
Need to balance it.
Yeah. Because that's quite high just for people at home that maybe don't know that number. And so what Lucas is definitely getting at here is if you need a ratio that's suitable for that much test of the estradiol. And that's why that sweet spot, that balance is where you're going to feel best and you get that morning wood. It's not just that bodybuilder mentality of test through the roof, estradiol through the floor, DHT as high as you can go or whatever. But I find the body composition aspect a little bit confusing though, because for some people, like the estradiol, if you drop the estradiol, you know how you get that dry, leaner look? Yeah.
But if you look into the studies, they show that when your estrogen's low, it can cause problems with insulin sensitivity and also it affects lipolysis.
Okay.
So I'm actually deep down really confused whether or not low estrogen is actually good for body composition or not.
Yeah.
Because subjectively, I find if I lower estradiol quite a lot, I start pissing a lot more. Like I lose water retention. My pumps go away. Like I feel shit.
Yeah.
My physique looks a little bit drier, but I'm like, hang on, estradiol low in men chronically can cause issues.
Yeah.
So there is a sweet spot. But going back to DHT.
Yeah.
So DHT, when I was looking into testosterone optimization, and I built out trtfree.com, the testosterone optimization course for guys that want to know what are the very best biohacks to optimize testosterone naturally.
Yep.
Manipulating diet, lifestyle, talking about red light therapy, icing, all that sort of stuff. Supplements as well. Which supplements can I introduce that have the most meaningful effect in terms of optimizing testosterone? Yes, it's true. Some of the ones that I selected in that course don't actually move the needle like we spoke about in terms of blood test.
Yeah.
But I selected them because I know that they don't lower DHT.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be adamant. I'm not going to be recommending guys out there lower DHT any further because most guys out there have low tests to begin with.
Yeah.
So like, are you serious? You think that this guy's going to respond well to you lowering DHT when his testosterone is already in the floor?
Yes.
And DHT is 3 to 10 times more potent than testosterone itself.
Yep.
Like we're talking about the most alpha male hormone that men basically secrete.
Yes, we are.
Well, produce as part of the metabolite.
Yep. What's that web address again? Just so people can
trtfree.com. That's literally all of my very best protocols for testosterone.
Okay, definitely make a note of that. Anyone listening to this, because I mean, there's just a lot of noise, and I think Lucas has cut through a lot of that with that link there. So I just want people to kind of just draw their attention to it. This is coming from people that are doing this to themselves a lot too. And he's had, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of clients, wherever you're up to now. You've seen a lot of feedback. So I just think that'd be a great resource for anyone. DHT is, you know what, the easiest way to figure out how important that is for me, try Propecia or finasteride. You don't even have to try it. I mean,
Not for me.
Yeah, don't try it. But if you want to know how important DHT is and you want to learn the hard way, take a few pills of finasteride or Propecia. Take it for just one day, maybe 2, maybe 3 at most.
I'd rather take estrogen.
Dude, you'd be better off.
I actually would be better off.
Because
if you give a guy estrogen, he actually feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I've seen studies where it actually increases sex drive.
Yeah.
But going back to that, if you take Propecia or finasteride,
you will crash. It will crash your whole test cascade somehow. I don't know all the mechanisms of why. I mean, it obviously is blocking DHT, so we know one of the major ones. That might have some sort of backstream effect as well because it might confuse the body. I don't know, but I just know by taking out DHT, forget about having a boner. Forget about having a quality boner. Let's just put it that way then. Because there's boners and there's quality boners. We all know that too. Men and women.
That's actually a good point to bring up.
Women probably know it better than men because they know the difference between the two. When you're really at the right levels of all your hormones, you're relaxed. And that's when it traditionally
parasympathetic tone is on point,
right? And that's when it would be time naturally to mate in the wild anyway, right? DHT would destroy that. It will take. Even if you just do it, I did a recent re-experiment with it, right? For me, it's easy to see if it's working because, I've got naturally bald genetics, runs in every side of my family. And look, that might mean that our DHT is high, but it doesn't actually always just work that way. It's genetically
I agree.
relevant. So a lot of these guys freak out when they see a study on creatine that shows a meager increase in DHT, a minor increase. And that's just because the guys are probably training harder. The guys and girls, whoever was in that particular study, are training harder. Hormones are raising up. Cascades are just spilling over into where they should. And it is not going to cause a single follicle, in my view, to fall out. I'll still be just as bald as I am now, and you'll have just as much hair as you have now because it is not enough to cause a change. And also because it's not super physiological levels of DHT. And also you're not prone or, you're not at the stage in the life cycle that you're in where you would be prone. It's not going to do anything like that. When I take it, I can grow my hairline back, but I have zero libido, even at 1 milligram at the lowest possible dose. And I have none of the benefits of healthy testosterone. Why the fuck would I want a single extra follicle? I don't give a shit. And we need to stop giving a shit.
I agree.
If it's your natural look, just Jason Stratham it up, shave your head, and have a mad boner all day. Like, maybe not all day, unless you're on Catuaba. But you know what I mean? Just be yourself, be your healthy, happy self. And I don't think it's going to affect women being attracted to you. I can guarantee having low DHT would probably deter women more than having the extra few follicles.
But not necessarily in the bedroom. It's also the way that they're presenting, like showing up confidence-wise. Like you look at the guys that have high, and I've seen the blood work, man. I've seen the CEOs and the executives that are making shitloads of money and their testosterone's high, and I've looked at their DHT and their DHT is above 2.5. And I'm like, man, there's something going on here. Like, you're a beast. You're a beast at work. You're crushing it, man. Like, you're training every day. You're able to build a 7-8 figure company yourself. I want to know what's going on underneath the hood.
Yeah.
And turns out, like, this guy's, I'm going to give a shout out to a friend of mine in Belgium. His testosterone levels was 1,270. So 1,270. And his DHT levels were quite high as well.
Right.
And I'm looking at his demeanor, his attitude, and I'm thinking, like, all right, I feel like a lot of women would be interested in him because of the way that he carries himself.
Yeah. Yep.
He's doing shit. He's mission focused. He's not procrastinating. He's getting things done. He's really confident. He backs himself. No, girls don't like a guy that can't back himself. Like, they're just not going to find that attractive.
1,000%. Way more impactful than minor cosmetic aspects of a dude, right? I mean, in shape, healthy, right attitude. And, we're not even touching on the potential for pheromones and things like that we can't see that are being detected.
That's a good point.
It's a thing. It's a thing, and it's an underexplored area. I mean, I know there's some science.
Is the pheromone the one that's found in celery? Did you hear about that one?
Oh,
the androstenedione.
Wow. Okay. You said the celery word. I'm going to tell you.
C word.
The C word. That's actually a nickname of mine. So there's that. Yes, I've read that. I am aware of that information too. It seems to be high in that. But there's something else about celery that I discovered, and I'm going to share this secret with you today and anyone that tuned in. There's a few things that'll give you mega loads, right?
I know where this is going.
And you can combine them. And if you want to try this out, you can. I mean, I'm not saying you have to have mega loads. I'm not, but there's something primordial about it. It does seem to exaggerate the orgasm feeling as well, and
the contractions.
And there's actually a particular herb I'll talk about that does that too. You know that one? And it's also, I'll say some women, I'd say, and they can chime in themselves. I don't want to speak for, but it seems like there is a certain, certain turn on around it. So some men want to increase that, right? And it must be a sign of health on some level.
Vitality,
right? Virility. So what you can do, you can try this experiment. This is the Lloyds bald man experiment that you can try at home. Try drinking a tall glass of celery juice for at least 3 days in a row before the deed. It'd be better if you abstained from ejaculation for at least a week.
Is this celery juice by itself with celery seeds?
You can. Hey, if you've got access to seeds, throw them in.
Seeds.
There's some secrets in the seeds as well. Now, this experiment that I've run myself didn't require the seeds, but I bet you if you add them, you're asking for even more effect.
Shooting ropes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you take a tall glass, so you might go to a Boost Juice or somewhere, they'll look at you funny because you're going to drink a glass of celery juice. It doesn't sound very appealing. You can add a bit of pineapple to it to flavor it up a bit, and that doesn't seem to it seems to synergize nicely. 3 days in a row, drink a tall glass of that. And then you will be shooting ropes already, right? And I heard that this is something that like porn stars used to do, like Peter North. Apparently.
I've heard this as well.
You heard that?
Yeah.
We've been deep in the forums.
I told you we've got the same search history.
100%. This turned out to be true when I did it. Then I learnt that soy lecithin or sunflower lecithin, any lecithin, 1,200 milligrams a day. Again, if you want to see the effect, run it for a week or so. Let's skip the 3 days and run this whole stack for a week if you just want to see something ridiculous happen. Then it turns out that if you take Swedish flower pollen, it exaggerates the contractions. It's good for your prostate too. And there's this Source Naturals one I always get off iHerb.
Is that why it's always sold out?
I've always got a few.
That's why.
And we keep a few at the store too.
Keep it on the hush, man. That's why it's...
Yeah, this is a top secret of mine too. And something happens when you combine those three major things. Obviously, some zinc helps too. There'll be some other things that help. I've heard that arginine. Maca is known, and bulbine for me has a massive increase there too.
Bulbine.
One of my favorite test boosting herbs. There's only one human study on it, which was favorable.
Was it the Prolensis one?
It was Prolensis, which no longer exists.
Do you actually have Bovine?
I've got a sack of it above my microwave.
I can't wait
You
to
can
try
leave here with as much as you want. And I certainly will get. That's not even my favorite one either. The 20-to-1 is the best from China.
Awesome.
This is from South Africa, and it's okay. It's good, but you seem to need more of it. It's a rawer extract. It's not as refined.
Right. Any diarrhea effects?
Nothing. Yeah, it's always been completely fine on my stomach, Bolbine. And you will notice with Bolbine, it seems to cause the gonads to store more cholesterol, which obviously is beneficial for producing hormones. They get larger.
Yeah.
Something that you've noticed on Fadogia too, I believe.
Oh, for sure.
It has a similar effect, but none of the GI distress. My favorite test boosting herb, it's actually Bolbine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's not the one, like Tongkat is one that I would say is the most, like the strongest, the most potent.
Is Bolbine an African?
It is an African.
Did they say it's one of those ones you can't use long term, or how do they describe it?
Okay, so the traditional African use of it, we don't know enough about. They seem it's just known in folklore as a great aphrodisiac. In the rodent studies, there seemed to be some liver enzyme elevation that leaned it towards cycling on and off. I've felt some pretty psychotic herbs, as we've already touched on. I've thrown up on Mucuna. I've almost turned inside out on the toilet with Fadogia. I've overdosed on Huperzine. I've damaged my liver with Superdrol.
Superdrol?
Yeah, back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very bad.
For like 4 weeks? Or
Yeah,
more?
3 weeks, and then I could see that my eyes were changing slightly color, and I stopped it forever after that. Never did another pro hormone.
You mean the white?
It looked like the white was not as white, and I could feel this lethargy that was very significant. I was quite young. I was still 26 or whatever.
Wow.
So it bounced back fine. Milk thistle, NAC.
Yeah, reversible.
Reversible. But you certainly wouldn't want to be messing with that. And it's any wonder that DMZ, which is a very similar derivative, resulted in some very bad court cases, man. There's grievous bodily harm. So it just shows you there is a dark side to some of these synthetics. And some herbs, no herb has ever done that to my liver. I'm not saying there isn't herbs that could, but none of these ones I mentioned were that bad. Bolbine, I've never noticed anything. I've always felt completely fine. I feel like I'm in tune enough with my body to know, but of course you could always just get some blood work or cycle off for a bit. No harm in that. It's always good to have a break anyway, because it might reset your sensitivity. There's only a few things that I'd say it's silly to take a break with, right? It'd be silly to take a break from adequate protein intake. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you had some issue. But Bolbine, definitely the bigger balls and the bigger loads. If you combine the Bolbine, lecithin, the Swedish flower pollen, and the celery juice, I'm just saying do it once in your life just to see that some of the stuff we talk about is true. That's all I'm saying. And if you're interested in just trying out having a mega load, if you think your partner would enjoy it, then, or if it's just for yourself,
just to boost that good old self-esteem,
just to live out that fantasy, then give it a shot.
If you want to shoot ropes there's a saying, everyone's got to own a luxury car once in a lifetime. It's a Nick Theodosi thing.
Right.
Everyone deserves to shoot ropes once in their lifetime.
100%, man. It's very satisfying. It obviously does.
It's that transition from boy to man.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage.
To Godfather.
Which is a weird thing because I kind of remember as a kid where those things change. But at some point, it's like you reach your natural peak with that. Obviously, if you're abstaining, from just kind of wasting it, right, or masturbating, or whatever, or if you just haven't had intercourse for a week or two, it's already like a bigger amount, like generally in a healthy male. But if you combine that stack and you give it at least a week or two, look out. You could probably add edging on top of that to just get things ridiculous. Maybe if you're making a living off this, you'd go to that much, or if you're just a deviant like me.
You've just coined the term of this supplement. It's called Re-DICKulous with a capital D.
Really?
Ridiculous.
I can't wait for
I
it to come out.
actually really like that name for a supplement.
Dude.
You can trademark
I'll
it.
put it in the pipeline.
Buy the domain name after this.
And it's definitely something I'm going to look at some point, is to put together just a good stripped back simple test booster one day, just a composite one.
So Bolbine.
Bolbine will be in there. There's no doubt about it.
Pine pollen?
Pine pollen's really cool, but because you need fairly large doses and it is a little tricky compliance-wise, there's only one form I think that they're cool with. I know Mason was looking into it at one point and didn't see it as viable yet. And with the mega doses, it would just be hard to put into a supplement in an efficacious way. It probably is better to have as its own sack, similar to maca, where you want 2 to 5 grams. You want a fairly large amount.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a standalone product because it's really hard to put it in a composite product that's convenient. But I do rate it. And it does seem to have some effects on it. It seems to improve some of those same things that I touched on. It seems to improve the sensitivity of my orgasm when I have pine pollen. Not the Swedish flower pollen. It's a different pollen nonetheless. Pine pollen that Lucas is talking about is known to contain naturally occurring epiandrosterone to some degree. We don't know if that ends up in the serum level. It may not. But what I do notice on it, it does seem to give a bit of a test boost, even in the powder form. I know some people like Lost Empire Herbs talk about the tincture being more potent. It's an alcohol extraction. I don't personally like having alcohol every day, even in low doses. I just don't. I don't know why. It's not great for the body, right? Any amount.
We just prefer mega dosing.
I just want teaspoons upon teaspoons of this bright, vibrant yellow powder. But what I do notice from the powder, I didn't notice it from the tincture. I did try it. Was this increased sensitivity to orgasm, which it's never really talked about with pine pollen, but it was there. It was like it was more potent, and I noticed that already with the flower pollen. But it was like there's this increase in sensitivity. And that's something I noticed on Catuaba too. You know what I noticed on that? The two heads connection, you know, the joke you made earlier, the mind and I guess penis connection was more in sync. And this must be to do with the dopamine signaling. The arousal was cleaner. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It's like if something, and apologies if this is all too much information, but it's too late to apologize now, I guess. If something turned me on, the response downstairs was in sync, way quicker and
instantaneous.
Yeah, it was like the two were talking. Because, I mean, growing up as a young man, I remember often being nervous and being disconnected from my dick, I think is a way to put it. I would want a certain outcome. I would be in a situation where I really wanted to wow this girl or whatever, and I just, the nerves or I guess that adrenaline would take over, and you were disconnected. Your body and your mind were in two different places. What you sort of were envisaging should happen, and where your body was at. Your body's in like fight or flight, like too nervous, too much performance anxiety, and so of course the remedy was to take your time, and there's no rush. You know, young guys especially, we need to chill the fuck out and just get to know her a bit more first. You don't have to wow her tonight, you know, if you're not feeling comfortable. But one thing I always noticed ever since then was that was a thing, trying to get in sync with your body. And, you know, your body it's not going to rely on thoughts and concepts. It's going to be like whether it feels this way or not. Whereas your head, you might have planned the night, lit the candles, you know, had this thing in mind, you know. And so to get the two in sync can take time. But Catuaba seemed to help with that a lot. Not that, you know, obviously I'm married now. I don't need, you know, that. I'm not in those situations as often. But I could tell just from the way that instead of it just like, oh, that's a bit of a turn on, or thinking about something like, you know, it was like, oh, and it's being reflected just in a subtle twitch.
But how life-changing could that be for a young 20-year-old, you know,
it's massive.
Early 20s, just starting to date, dude, you know, wants to impress, right?
100%.
Like that's where Catuaba can really shine, sort of
absolutely
re-engaging that connection between, you know, the two heads.
Yeah. And even for me though, it's wonderful. Like, you know, for a young guy, it's fucking huge because I think the social anxiety thing that you touched on that it seems to reduce is definitely there. I don't want to discredit just taking your time. You know, like if I had a son right now, I mean, my advice is still like behaviorally get your shit correct too. But my God, I really like that. And I've never had a herb do that. I've had herbs that seem to increase testosterone levels or sensitivity so that I'm more ready to go and in a better place where I'm just feeling like more libido, more morning wood in the morning. But I've never had a herb sync up my arousal in a better way like that. And that's the only way I could describe it. I did it on a few stories trying to explain it, and a few people got it. Like,
well, we've had a few people suffer from, you know, PSSD.
Right.
So for that category of people, Catuaba has helped to like reignite some degree of connection.
Yeah.
Because that's post SSRI sexual dysfunction.
Right.
But it's interesting that you got that, man. Like really, really interesting.
Oh, because I'm very in tune with this stuff. You know what? That's one thing about me that I've explored a lot is test boosting and libido boosting. And some people are a bit shy about it. I don't know why. And
dude, I agree. I want to talk about it so that guys can actually dig deeper and like explore the boundaries of actual like, let's try and max out sexual performance.
Yeah.
Like I've been similar to yourself.
Yeah, I think we need to open up the discussion and make it okay. It's like it's okay to have a good sex life, guys.
Completely.
It's okay to want to be a good partner in bed. It's not okay to beat yourself up if it's not always perfect. You know, and any woman will tell you it's like, you know, relax. Like it's not all about that. But if you want to be at your best and you really want your partner to enjoy it and you're obviously thinking about her or him or whoever as much as yourself, you know, you don't want to go down the rabbit hole of just like, I had a great time with my massive boner, you know, of course. And that's advice we all need to reflect on sometimes, right?
It's mutual. It needs to go both ways.
You want it to be mutual, but for it to be mutual to the point where you're not so worried about your performance that it's overriding the enjoyment you can both have because they're sweating on, you know, did I pop my 50 milligrams of Viagra at the right time? And
I can't imagine how many guys, like how realistically now, how many mid-20-year-old or like let's say 20s to 30s are reliant upon Viagra and Cialis just to get an erection? This is what I say. I think that if a guy is optimized and his testosterone levels are high enough and his dopamine signaling is high enough, you do not need Viagra or Cialis to get an erection.
No.
Because in my opinion, when I'm in my prime, it's erection on demand within 3 to 5 seconds. It's like bang.
Yeah.
If you know, in the right conditions, the right context, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And I'm feeling primed.
Yep.
I'm feeling like my test and dopamine are in sync, and my parasympathetic nervous system, I'm on point.
Yep.
So give me the opportunity, and I'm ready.
Yep.
Like I think every guy has the right to feel like that.
Yes.
Without needing to be on Cialis or Viagra. I fully believe in that, and I think every guy is capable of getting into that state if they're dialed in. You know, I think it's really important.
I totally agree, and it's funny. It's something as I get older that I've started to be able to come to terms with more and achieve more. You know, it's like the more I understand these things, often we're masking an underlying issue with the Viagra or Cialis. And then to a degree, that's okay. Like if it helps you, much like with some antidepressants, which is a different category but if it helps you get through a tough time or over some performance anxiety that's starting to compound itself because it's reinforcing, it's a great tool. But if we just look at what the underlying issues could be, look at some herbal remedies, look at getting to the source of the problem and your current unease that's probably leading to that, I think that's really valid. And a lot of the times it can be things like these DHT blockers.
And a high serotonin state as well.
Yes. And that can be drug related too.
Yeah.
That's the thing I want people to think about is let's put it this way, let this be a banger that we can chop up later. I don't mind saying it. If you're relying on Cialis or Viagra and you have low libido and you're on Propecia or finasteride, stop it right now. Try coming off that and tell me if your boners don't come back after a month or two, and you're going to have to wait some time. And you can use some of these herbs. You can go to Lucas's free testosterone advisory site link, and you can look at some of those things to incorporate to bring it back. But start there, because I guarantee you that is the first thing that's killing your boners. The second thing to look at is if you do have any habits or maybe medications, because these are the two most severe things. I mean, technically they're both medications, right? The DHT blockers are a medication. Get rid of those first. If you value a nice, like a quality sex life over your hair follicles, just drop the fucking DHT blockers.
Agreed.
Start there.
Absolutely. And also the fact that if a guy has, we have to address the canary in the coal mine, because erectile dysfunction or the inability to get an erection can be an early sign that a guy is going down the route of cardiovascular disease.
Yes.
It's a really good proxy. It's a really good marker. And it's literally costs nothing, right? All you have to do is inspect your dick.
Yeah. It's very simple. All you have to do. Wake up in the morning and
And if you're having blood flow issues, you might need to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Because you could have plaque build up starting to The other part as well is that as men age, they actually start to accumulate plaque in the penile tissue as well. And there's certain things that men can do, such as taking like serrapeptase, nattokinase.
Oh, yeah, I love that supplement, man.
Yeah, like to break down scar tissue, things like that. It could be helpful, but it's a really important subject. Like this erectile dysfunction is a really, it really hits a mark for a lot of guys, but I really like the fact that you're bringing awareness to it. We need to start talking about it publicly.
I think so. And I think particularly with the hair stuff, you know, I've had plenty of experience, and I think also another big one for men that's probably killing their boners outside of poor diet and exercise, you know, and all the things they can learn about is you've got to look at any extracurricular habits. If you're drinking a lot of alcohol, if you're doing a lot of coke, if you are doing too much Molly, whatever your vice is, you've got to keep that under control because it will kill your boners, guys. And if you're relying on Viagra to patch that up.
And vaping as well.
And vaping. Oh, my God. Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, vaping is a no-go zone, in my opinion, for quality erections.
There's studies on it, right? I think you were calling it out on some content recently.
Yeah, man.
Right?
There's like literally there's chemicals found in vapes that can affect androgen receptor binding. If a guy wants good quality erections, he needs to stop vaping. Simple as that.
Just throw it out. I know what I would prefer. And I just think if they can make the correlation, you know, we're not here kind of telling people how to live. I think it's more just like so you can make those links. Like a lot of the times where I see my friends go wrong, and I'm sure me too, is where you're just not making the correlation. You're like, oh, what's
That's
up with
thing.
I'm not feeling myself, but I'm over here doing this thing that's causing it without understanding that they're connected.
Dude, you've brought up probably the most important thing when it comes to anyone looking to get in better shape, better health, whatever it is. If your goal is to improve any element of your health, you need to be aware that there's correlations between things that you probably never thought would actually impact that, but actually do impact that.
Yes.
And I'm going to bring this up on the podcast because I don't really talk about it a whole lot. But for me, if I want to crash my entire biology into, I know it's a big statement, but if I want to feel shit, unfortunately, if I get exposed to not gluten, but if I get exposed to starch, potato starch, it cooks me, man.
Really?
It'll send me to the floor. Yeah.
Wow.
And I know it sounds weird. Like, what is he talking about? How the hell does starch? You know how they add potato starch, tapioca starch.
It's a thickener, right?
It's a thickener, man.
Right. Yep.
Right. I know it sounds like pretty benign. It doesn't sound that bad. And realistically, when you look at it, it's actually not that bad. Like you look into the research, it's not that bad. What is it doing for Lucas? Why can't he tolerate it? Maybe it's because it's feeding pathogenic bacteria in his gut and they're releasing serotonin.
Yep.
And is that why I respond so well to lactoferrin, which is one of my new favorite immune peptides?
Yep.
So the point I'm trying to make here is if you're a guy that's been suffering from erectile dysfunction or you've got issues in some way, you actually need to look at your diet and you actually need to get the magnifying glass out, have a look at the shit you got in your pantry and have a look. There might be these hidden ingredients that are in your products that they're actually healthy on paper, but you just may not be responding well to it. You might be someone who's really sensitive to certain spices and herbs, chili, ginger, cinnamon, cardamom. These have psychoactive qualities and they can actually affect your mental health. Like it's really profound.
Dude, I've got a friend who is, I guess, almost addicted to chili. And I genuinely think it's giving him hemorrhoids. It's inflaming his colon.
It's a toxin on the way in. That's why it burns. Yeah. And it's a toxin on the way out.
On the way out. And I just want him to just have a break.
Is he really addicted to it?
I just think the way that he responded.
Give a shout out to your friend.
Your poor friend. He'll fucking kill me. He's actually he's my boss at work. I didn't mention your name. It's all right. Big dog. I'm sorry. But the way he responded was like, no fucking chance. You know, the way he was like, that it will never happen tells me that he really, really needs chili. But I just genuinely think it would greatly assist. You know, 'cause it's not fun having an inflamed colon. I'm just saying, it's just, and if you can avoid it, if you can start cutting out some of these things out of your diet and get a benefit like that, then why wouldn't you explore it first, to your exact point?
But the thing is, how is he ever going to, like, that comes back to the tracking aspect.
Yeah.
If you're not tracking, what gets measured gets managed.
Yes.
That saying.
Yes.
It applies to health.
Yep.
Like, you might be someone who you may have started doing cold showers or ice baths, and you're doing it 3 times a week. And you may notice that your energy has picked up at work. Maybe you're getting a bit more, you know, dopamine, norepinephrine sort of feelings.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I've actually spoken to some like real experts in like epigenetics.
Yes.
And they actually said that for one of their patients, they are able to look at the aging of different organs, right? They're looking at, I don't know how they calculate it, but they can basically figure out what age is your heart, what age is your lungs, what age is your kidneys.
Yes.
It's really, really cool.
Yep. And it makes sense because these organs do different things, and you could be punishing one and all G with another.
It's true that not all organs age at a linear rate.
Correct.
Some age at a faster rate. And so what they found was that this lady was doing ice baths like 3 or 4 times a week, and she was concerned that it was actually affecting her health in a negative way.
Yep.
And they actually found out that doing the ice baths that frequently was actually accelerating the aging of her cardiovascular health.
Wow.
Because she was overdoing it on the ice baths.
Okay.
So like, this is where it comes back to the dosage.
Yeah.
The dosage determines the poison, right?
Yeah.
If ice baths are not bad.
No.
If she drops it down to like once a week or twice a week, then
Starts going the other way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gets the benefits. So yeah, I'm also a big believer in that.
Yeah.
Minimum effective dosage.
Big time. That ice bath thing really was asking for people to start abusing it. You know, it's weird that it became a craze. I mean, there's some things I could have predicted, Lucas, like that might take off. Jumping into a freezing cold freaking bath of ice water wasn't one of them. But somehow people really started to get into it. So obviously they were experiencing some of those dopamine boosting benefits. But it's I think it's possibly the same for sauna, maybe not as easy to overdo.
Well, I say to all guys, if they're going to use a sauna, they need to bring
ice the balls.
Ice back. Yeah. It just has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're going to be that weird guy in the gym, you walk in with an ice pack.
So be it.
A frozen bag of peas.
Yeah.
You know, that's your post-workout meal.
Yeah.
Nah, it's for my balls.
Yeah.
Not my post-workout.
I really think you should
get arrested by a cop for
decent ball exposure. It's like, I'm trying to keep my test high, man.
No, for driving with ice.
Oh, right. Really?
With ice.
So that's oh, right. It's funny, because
it's probably Melbourne.
No, yeah. I actually know a customer that got done for driving with, actual ice. So yeah, don't do that. Don't do that with either kind, I guess. But
yeah, DHT, you sort of,
yeah.
Look, DHT we've spoken about. We've done the things that they need to be cautious of.
Yep.
Yeah. It's an exciting space, man. Like, hats off to you as well for the content you're putting out. Like, it's
trying to get there.
Awesome.
Yeah, look, I really wanted to make this next 2 years all about that and just see if I can build an audience and, have a candid channel where we can have some really open discussion and partner with people like you. And I guess that's why for me, it's kind of, it's crazy that I'd get you on this early. I thought I would have to build it pretty big, and then
it's early.
You were
downplaying yourself, man.
You were just like so supportive. So
for sure.
I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and I really hope this isn't the only one we do. I want to do this again.
I'll get you on mine. Yeah,
dude.
Definitely get
anytime.
You on my podcast.
I'll always make time because I just think there's so much we are yet to uncover. We did pretty well on this one. If people can keep up with all that, I'll be impressed. But there's some nuggets in there. But there's a lot of things that we could sort of zoom in on as well. So
for sure, I'm looking forward to getting you on my podcast and jamming it out. But
I'll be there.
Yeah, really appreciate the feedback you've given me. Like, I'm similar to you. We both have a similar vision. We want to pioneer and explore the depths of humanity and uncover ingredients.
Yeah,
like that's what I love doing.
100%, man.
So
especially when they work as good as some of the things we've touched on. And I really think, I know it might seem like a shameless plug, but I'm being genuine. get onto the Catuaba that Lucas has put out. It's a really good quality one. I've used it in the past, not really noticed anything. I didn't know what I was looking for, though, to be fair. Sometimes you need to have a bit of an explanation so you can test it properly. It is very good for mood and libido without being outrageous. It's not like you're walking around with boners inappropriately or anything. You're just really in sync. You feel really good. And it's a great dopamine stacker. Put it with your tyrosine, a little bit of coffee. Is there anything else you would add to your favorite dopamine stack before we close out?
Probably the biggest takeaway would be if people are interested in exploring these dopaminergics, I think the main premise would be start with each molecule at a time and then just get a feel for it for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Understand what different dosages do to you, how does it affect different elements. And then you can get creative and exploratory and you can start merging. Do your stacks.
That's start really good advice.
Get a feel for things in isolation. Yeah. Then if you want to get into the pharmaco, you want to become the pharmacist of your own, body.
Yeah.
Start playing around with stacks, different dosages and that sort of stuff.
That's great advice, man. Amazing. Well, Lucas, thanks so much for coming on. I can't wait to put this one up. Next time you're in town, please hit me up. And anytime you want to do one together on yours, even if it's remote, let's just absolutely do that.
We'll make that happen.
Yeah.
Make sure that happens.
Brilliant.
It'll be episode probably 340 something on my podcast.
So you're up to that many now, huh?
We're up to 326.
Wow.
I'm doing probably like 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah, and I've got to say to anyone listening, that is really, really hard to do. This is like the 4th that I've done, and it's like that's a body of work, man. You should be really, really proud of that, and just thanks for all that you've done for this industry. I mean, the last thing I'll say before we close out is you probably don't realize how much you've helped the supplement industry in Australia.
Thank you, man.
You deserve some credit for it. I'm sure a lot of supplement store owners out there could chime in if they watch this and say that there's been at least a fistful of times that they can recall in recent memory where someone's come in asking for something that you've put them onto and referencing you. Like, you guys got some Meclonia
awesome.
Cava? You guys got that Sustange?
That's so funny.
You guys got Catuaba? Oh, you got it here.
I appreciate that.
When people saw it, they were like, oh, what? There's some dudes that were like, oh, I love him.
That's
older
amazing.
guys, guys too, like that have been looking at your stuff genuinely for health reasons.
Real, man. That's so cool.
It's a real thing, and you may not always get that feedback.
I never do, man. I rarely do.
Yeah.
Like I do, but in that context, it's like, wow.
No, it's a thing. So know that it's working, and don't ever stop, man. I'm sure you weren't gonna, but keep it up. Thanks for all you do, man.
Appreciate it, Lloyd.
Anytime. All right, brother. All the best. We'll do it again soon.
Definitely, man.
Thanks, everyone. Speak to you later.
That was sick.